Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Asked is the only tool to access live People Also Asked data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
I also wish Ted was here, to be completely honest, and normally he features in my presentations, but actually today I don't have a picture of him at all. That is a definite screw up on my part. Hi guys, thank you so much for having me back at Brighton. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. Thank you all as well for sticking around. I know 4 p.m. is prime pub time, so I do really appreciate you sticking around for the talk. Today we're going to be talking about reimagining EEAT using ethos, pathos and logos to boost SEO campaigns. So let's get started. So first off, just a little bit about me. Becky did a great introduction, but I am the founder and owner of Cedarwood Digital. So I've owned Cedarwood for nearly 10 years now. We are an SEO, digital PR and PPC agency based in Manchester. My own experience, about 15, I say 15 plus years, it's closer to 20, but I prefer not to say that for my own self-confidence. My background, so I trained as a print and TV journalist in Australia before moving over to the UK, and yeah, in my spare time, I love to travel and spend time with my puppy, Ted. So you're probably asking, because a lot of people have said this to me in the last couple of days, what is ethos, pathos, and logos, and where did the idea for this talk come from? Well, funny story. So back at Christmas time, I was talking to my dad, and I said to him I wanted to do this talk. And it actually stems back to when I was at school. So what I asked my dad to do was provide me with a suitable school photo that I could show in front of a room of people. That is what I got from my dad to show in front of you all today. So this talk actually originated back when I was at school. So when I was at school, I went through a period of wanting to be a million different things. I wanted to be a lawyer, then I wanted to be a TV star, I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be an engineer. I had all these different dreams and aspirations. And as a result of that, in my final year, I took a whole myriad of different courses. So I know in the UK, you usually do about 3 or 4 subjects in your last year. Well, in Australia, we have to do 7. So the majority of mine were maths and science-based to kind of follow in my dreams to be an engineer. But I had one subject that I had left to do that I just kind of needed to fill the gap. And I actually picked philosophy. Now, philosophy found itself on a Friday afternoon, which to me was prime time, because on a Friday afternoon, I was spending a lot of my time planning what I was going to do for the weekend, and my philosophy book basically became a pros and cons of various men that I was dating at the time, and how I was going to put this into practice over the weekend. But the truth is that actually of all the subjects that I studied in high school, ironically, when I came into SEO, it was philosophy that was the one that I started to utilize the most. And when I started working in SEO, I started thinking back to Aristotle and Plato and Epicurus and all the philosophers that I'd had. And I realized that a lot of the things that I was doing in my day-to-day actually stemmed from principles that they'd created many, many years ago. When I started working in SEO, I actually realized that it was all connected. And the reason that it was all connected was because really good SEO basically came down to 3 things. So the first thing was having a great product or service, because in SEO, we can't magically make things sell and we can't magically generate leads. We have to have a great product or service to start off with. We also have to ensure that people can find you. That is a really big element of SEO. And finally, we have to persuade people why they should buy from you. Because in a competitive market, there's a lot of different companies that are offering the same product. So you could essentially summarize that as creating a logical argument, persuaded by emotion, and backed up by credibility. That is how I would summarize a lot of what we're doing in SEO at the minute. But someone summarized like that long time before I did, and it was a guy called Aristotle. And he came up with a theory of ethos, pathos, and logos. And he basically reasons, this was back in the day, many, many thousands of years ago, when really the way that people sold product was through public speech, through rhetoric and the way they came across. And he theorized that these were the 3 key elements that he had to making a good sale and getting people to convert on your website, which fundamentally as SEOs is what we want people to be doing. Now, ethos had the credibility side of things. So in order to be able to sell, you had to be credible, you had to have some level of ethics, and you had to be able to back that up by what people were seeing, both in terms of person and also what people were saying about you. From a logos perspective, it had to be logic and reasoning, so people had to be able to understand logically and reasonably why they should work with you. And then there was pathos, which was basically the kind of emotional side of things, the empathy, the way that people would resonate with you. Now, you're probably going to say to me, hey, is that not just EEAT? But absolutely not. And funnily enough, on April Fool's Day, I saw someone on LinkedIn say, Google's adding an extra E to EEAT. It was obviously a joke. But the E was going to be, in their eyes, emotion. And I actually thought, that's a great idea, because actually that sums up everything that I'm trying to say. Obviously, it was a joke at the time. But it really got me thinking that actually emotion does play a huge part in what we're doing. Because the difference between EEAT and ethos, pathos, and logos is the connection that we actually build between the brand and the audience. It's the emotional side of things. It's the way that we connect the heart and the mind together. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of this and get you to start thinking about it in practice. So it's 4 p.m. on a Friday. I'm not going to ask for hands. But just in your head, how many of you have researched a company online before buying a product or a service? I'd say that's probably quite a few people. So in actual fact, the data shows us that 81% of consumers research online before they purchase. And typically, it takes around 79 days of online research before someone makes a high-value purchase. So people are looking around, and there's a lot of information for people to find when they start looking. But the most damning statistic, perhaps, is the fact that 87% of consumers say that they will reverse a purchase decision after reading negative news or reviews about a business online. So you could spend all your time and all your money, and you could rank in position 1 for every keyword under the sun. But if people are coming to your website and then they're not actually going on to convert, because when they start doing that research about you, and hey, 79 days of research, there's a lot of information they can find in that time, then they're actually going to go out of the funnel and you're going to lose them. So actually being able to present a real credible connection to your audience externally is very important to pushing that conversion optimization through. Because fundamentally, people care about what they read. It makes them feel something. It builds that emotional connection. And I think often as SEOs, we're guilty of overlooking this emotional connection in favor of things like keyword rankings and traffic to the website. We're thinking and we're focusing very hard on bringing people to the website rather than what's actually happening once they get there. And Trustpilot agrees with this. So it says positive internet reputation is the #1 factor that impacts company trust. Google agrees too, because in the quality rater guidelines, they mention things like reputation and authority a number of times, and I know that they've recently updated these as well to kind of put even more of an emphasis on it. But the question that I would have to you is, how many times do you actually check your own reputation as a business? So how many times do we Google ourselves? I know before I started thinking about this, I did it very infrequently, mainly because I was a little bit terrified of what I might find. But the truth is, it's actually really, really easy to do. So for any of you that aren't doing it, that aren't kind of aware of your own branding and your brand reputation, there's a couple of very simple things that you can pop into Google to find out. So the first one is your brand search minus your site. And the second one is your brand search and reviews, again, minus your site. This is a really, really quick way to understand what people are seeing about you. And when we're talking about that 89% of people that could potentially drop off, it's a really good way to get an understanding if there's something out there that you might need to fix. Conversion optimization is a really, really important part of SEO. And building ethos, pathos, and logos plays a really key role in getting to that conversion. So now that we've learned a little bit about it, how do we actually go about utilizing these principles to improve our SEO performance? Well, we're going to take a look through Aristotle's eyes, both on-site and off-site. We're going to start with the on-site side of things. So give your audience what they're looking for and back it up with trust and expertise. So one of the main areas of ethos, pathos, and logos on-site is user intent. So user intent is a purpose or goal behind a user's query, and matching user intent helps to build all of these elements. So the first thing that you can do is align your content with user intent to start building that emotional connection. Because if your content aligns with what people are looking for, they're immediately going to be on board with what you're saying. There's a number of ways that you can do this in terms of the content that you create. So you can either do it through the type of content, so aligning it through the type of content that Google is presenting in the SERPs. You can do it through the format, so things like how-to guides, list posts, evidently very popular for AI, opinion pieces and reviews, or you can do it through the angle that you showcase as well. But in addition to looking at things like format, it's also really important to understand what you're trying to put across in the content that you have. And Google gives us a really good example of the contrast between experience and expertise. And when we're building an emotional connection, this is really where we can start to think. Because if you're filling out tax forms, sometimes from an expertise perspective, you do just want a list of what to do. But sometimes this list can be very exhaustive and painful. And actually, you just want a humorous video on someone who's trying to do it. It's more relatable. It's maybe someone that's in your situation, and it builds a better emotional impact. The same if you've got sleep challenges when pregnant. Definitely you would want to speak to a doctor about sleep medications that are safe for pregnancy. But sometimes, if you really want to build that connection, you just want to hear from someone that's been in that situation before. So you want to hear from someone who's been there and who's tried and tested something, and that, again, can build more of that emotional connection. And it's the same if you're looking at how to vote. So Logos, when we're ticking the box on that online, it's very much about user intent. But we also need to think about how we start to build ethos and pathos. And this element that we've talked about before, it does start to build that emotion, but we need to hone in on it a little bit more. Ethos and pathos build that connection to our audience. So when we're focusing on SEO optimization, it is really important to think about how we incorporate that alongside user intent. So how do we appeal to emotion? Well, emotion really starts with a story that allows you to get some buy-in from your audience. I've given a couple of examples here of websites that I feel do this really well when they showcase the stories. The first one is a wedding site called 6 Stories. It's run by a girl called Lucy. It started out when she created some bridesmaids dresses for her own bridesmaids, and then she kind of went on and grew the business from there. It's a really personal story. She shares her story through Instagram, through social channels. She's incredibly relatable for a lot of people, and she puts this through very well. It builds that emotional connection. Another company, Cassart, an art retailer. So again, they have a long family history of working in the art retail space. Again, they showcase a lot of what they've done, and they build that emotional resonance through their story. And it's not just the About Us page. Case studies are another really great way to start building that emotional bond. Again, you're building that connection with the audience. People are starting to understand, okay, that person might have been in the same position that I am, and they can start to resonate with that. And that, again, starts to build that emotional connection and gets people thinking, oh, actually, maybe I could also be in that situation, and I could be helped in the same way. And UGC is pretty self-explanatory. Someone utilizing a product and showcasing how that works. Again, a really great way to build emotion and start to resonate with that audience. You can also build emotion through content. And a great way of doing this is explaining benefits and not features. So what I mean by this is when you list a product for sale, let's say headphones, meal kit, air fryer, etc., it's very easy to list the features that are available. So that could be things like, the headphones are wireless, the air fryer's got a removable basket, the meal kit is ready to heat, and that's brilliant. But if I really want to build an emotional connection with the audience, I need to tell them what it's going to do for them, and what the feature is actually going to be. So headphones, no more tangled cords, perfectly. There's nothing more annoying than getting headphones out of my bag and having to untangle the cords. Air fryer, easier to clean, perfect, because I spend so much time cleaning stuff in my household, and I'm short of time as it is, that being able to have something that's easy to clean is ideal. And same with the meal kit, saving time preparing meals. So sometimes it's just about the way that you present the content and presenting the benefits instead of the features that can really help you to build that pathos, that emotional bond with the audience, and get them a little bit more on board for your product. You then want to establish credibility with your ethos, and this is where the EEAT comes in a little bit more. So we're talking about kind of common EEAT, tactics, expert commentary from actual experts, authoring, content pillaring, guides, FAQs, videos, you know the drill. Most of you are probably doing this already. But this plays a really important part from the ethos side of things. But from an AI perspective, bring something new and unique to the conversation. So information gain for large language models is a really hot topic of debate at the minute. So make sure that you're targeting search outside of Google with the kind of content that you're actually creating. So we're going to move on to offsite. So offsite is really talking about building your external reputation using ethos, pathos, and logos. And this is where we start to talk about the 87% of people who can be put off your product if they find that there's something there that they don't like. So what's the first step in the process for this? Well, first off, we want to review our online sentiment. So when I showed you before how to Google yourself, that's a really great place to start. So let's start thinking about how we're actually appearing online and where potential issues could be and how we're going to start plugging those gaps. We then want to analyze our media coverage to see what type of coverage we've received, and then start to identify those weaknesses so we can build on them, whether it's with a digital PR plan or a different offsite strategy. Once we have the understanding and the foundation for what we need to do, it's very easy for us to build on it off the back of that. And journalists agree, because understanding actually what our audience wants to see and who our audience is, 92% of them say that understanding this is crucial for them even to consider a story pitch. So in addition to being able to get our content covered, we really need to understand who it is that we're targeting from an audience perspective and where we need to put that content. So let's start and look at this in practice. We'll start off with expert commentary, and I appreciate it's been a topic of debate, but really from our perspective, you need to use experts. Expert commentary, real expertise at the heart of it all. And your client's expertise is one of your richest yet cheapest assets. So a couple of examples of where this has been done. Road traffic accident lawyer, giving expertise in terms of 5 common fines that you could incur if you break a road rule. It can be things like not securing your pets properly, not wearing your seatbelt, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about road safety here, so road traffic accident lawyers are a great expert to talk about this. Really great piece of coverage, good links from an SEO perspective, but it also starts to build that ethos, pathos, and logos. It's building that emotional connection, it's showcasing expertise, and it's helping SEO at the same time. Second example is a vaping retailer. So in this particular instance, vaping retailer offered expert comment on why you shouldn't take vapes in certain parts of the airplane, or how you have to pack them before you can actually take them on board, because they can potentially explode if you don't pack them properly. Now, obviously, this has a huge public interest angle, but it also showcases it's building trust in the retailer, because there's so much information around about counterfeits and problems with that you're starting to really build that trust and the ethos, pathos, and logos accordingly. And when you're thinking about this, think about what people actually care about. So cost of living crisis, right now, show that you care. Tell people and let people understand why you care about that. Build good sentiment. And sometimes good sentiment doesn't just have to be built by using your own expertise. In this particular instance, this company just brought together 5 key government grants that you could get where you could claim a discount on energy to basically save money on energy. So that's great. Really, really good human interest angle as well. It showcases that you actually care about your audience because you're saving them money. So brilliant. And the added benefit of building links at the same time. In order to get your company in the press, you might want to set up a reactive news jacking strategy, get your team in the news, get your client in the news, get people thinking about it on a more important basis. We did this piece recently on tiramisu drawers, so slightly scarily before Christmas, people decided to turn an entire drawer of their fridge into a tiramisu, which sounds like a dream, don't get me wrong, I love a bit of tiramisu, but it also sounds like an absolute nightmare from a bacterial perspective. In this particular instance, had a catering supplier who commented on this and actually warned people about the risks of doing this. Again, it's great from an SEO perspective, it does build those top tier links, but it also showcases that kind of emotional connection. We actually care about people, we're giving people some advice to save them from potentially doing something that could be dangerous. So I think this works really well. You can also use free data sources to build brands and links, and there's absolutely tons of data sources out there that you can use. I've listed a couple up here, but you can go online, you can find 100, 200 free data sources. There's absolutely tons of them out there. And then when you've got this data, you really want to visualize it in a way that journalists love. And visuals work really well from this perspective because they not only help to build trust and build links, but also they're a really, really valuable asset that journalists can use to showcase people what's actually going on. In this particular instance with a vaping retailer, we did FOI requests around the number of illegal vapes that had been seized in the UK, and it was pretty terrifying, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot. Now, by visualizing this piece, we were able to get it covered quite widely in the press, but more than that, we were able to showcase an awareness of the fact that we knew that this was a problem, and we wanted to actually help to identify it and try and do something about it. That's a really great way to build ethos, pathos, and logos for the brand. Similar situation with a medical negligence firm, again, looking at CQC reports. So this is reports where best and worst rated NHS GPs in England Similar situation again, mapping it out into something that is quite visual, allows people to understand the data a little bit better, but it also showcases that you have a really good awareness of what's going on in that space and that you actually genuinely care about what the situation is. So really good links, high quality, top tier DR, but also building on that emotional bond with the audience. So I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts today with regards to this. Digital PR is more than just links. It's about building reputation. It's about getting people to understand your brand and hoping that your brand doesn't fall into the 87% of people that may potentially leave after reading something that they don't like. SEO is definitely more than just rankings. Bringing people to the website isn't enough. We have to make them engage with the brand to a point where they feel really comfortable to go on and convert. At the end of the day, that's what's making the money, that's what's paying the bills. Bringing people to a website means absolutely nothing if they don't convert. It's really, really important to use these principles to get people to love you, to get people to love your brand, and then when you do great SEO and you bring them to the website, they're going to convert, and you're going to see the benefit of what you've done. Thank you for listening to me today. If you do want to connect on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn information is in the bottom left, but have a lovely afternoon.